Question number 7, Eugenie Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, thank you. My question is to the Minister for the Environment and asks, does he agree with former Prime Minister Sir Geoffrey Palmer that the Resource Legislation Amendment Bill contains at least 3 significant and dangerous trends, including greater ministerial control and centralised decision-making and reduced opportunities for public participation?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I agree the reform is significant, but his criticisms reflect his defensive view of his original RMA design that has proved to be excessively bureaucratic, litigious and costly. The fact that Parliament, under both National and Labour government, keeps having to pass special laws to address significant resource issues like water allocation in the Waitaki or a new unitary plan for Auckland reinforces the fact that the RMA is too slow and bureaucratic. There is a fundamental shift from Sir Geoffrey's model in these reforms in having stronger national direction and consistency. This makes common sense because for a country of our size, having 86 different approaches and 80,000 pages of different rules and policies across New Zealand does not make sense.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Eugenie Sage.
Did he consider not proceeding with the bill after so many submitters, from Fonterra to Forest and Bird, and not just Sir Geoffrey, criticised the substantial increase in ministerial powers, the limits on public participation and the bill's emphasis on quick decision-making rather than quality decision-making?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr.
Well, if I just take the submission from Fonterra, yes, out of the 40 proposals in the bill, there were 2 areas that they wanted change. Big deal. That's why we are making some adjustments as all major bills get through this Parliament. What I find remarkable is that every member of this House knows, after report, that if we're serious about addressing issues like housing, we need to provide more land for that by reforming the RMA, but members opposite whine all the time and then oppose the very reforms that will make a material difference.
Supplementary question, Nook Karako.
Tēnā koe e te mana whakawā. To the Minister, what substantive reports has he received that give a different view to that of Sir Geoffrey Palmer's opposition to RMA reform?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, the OECD report last year was very critical of the RMA, saying its lack of responsiveness to growing housing demand has exacerbated house price increases and that New Zealand has very high environmental compliance costs as compared with other OECD countries. Secondly, the Independent Productivity Commission has produced 2 substantive reports that recommend substantive change to the RMA that's included in this bill. And thirdly, Local Government New Zealand's 2015 report on public satisfaction with council services said that the RMA rated as the single greatest area of public concern in making councils more effective. It is these substantive reports that have influenced the government's determination to ensure that that Act is reformed.
Supplementary question, Eugenie Sage.
Can he guarantee that the bill will bring down house prices without limiting the rights of neighbours and local residents to have a say on developments and subdivisions affecting them and their neighbourhoods?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, if you look at examples like Three Kings, if you look at the debate that's occurred over the Auckland Unitary Plan and new areas of greenfields development, the truth is that we do need to reduce the number of appeals and the years that it takes to bring new housing supply on stream if we're actually going to have more homes for Kiwi families, and that is why this reform is actually at the root of actual long-term solutions to New Zealand housing affordability and supply.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Eugenie Sage.
Can he guarantee that under his bill, New Zealanders will have the same rights that they have now under the RMA to have a say on council plans which influence their neighbourhoods and the places that they love.
Mr. Speaker,
The Honourable
this
Dr.
bill
Smith.
unapologetically reduces some of the appeals that sees a project like Three Kings that would provide 1,400 homes in the Mount Roskill electorate at a time where there's high demand that's taken more than 5 years to build. And can we honestly say in this parliament that we're serious about building houses when we allow that sort of delay in new home construction?
Supplementary?
Order. Order.
Supplementary?
Supplementary question, Eugenie Sage.
Does he agree with the New Zealand Law Society that, and I quote, there are potential costs in the lack of public participation, including loss of public confidence in the consent process and a reduction in the quality of decision-making, and if not, why not?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, it is true that lawyers will make less money out of the RMA as a consequence of the reform bill because New Zealanders want better environmental improvement, they want more houses being built, and they want our economy to be able to grow and provide jobs, and they are the values on this side of the House that we stand for.
Supplementary?
Supplementary question, Eugenie Sage.
Is it correct that the ministerial regulation-making powers in the bill include him being able to stop communities like Northland and Hawke's Bay from being able to decide for themselves whether genetically modified crops should be planted in their areas?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, there is already a question in law that is being challenged around whether it makes sense for councils to be able to separately regulate GM. How many members of this House really believe that the Auckland Council should stop a GM liver treatment approved by the Environmental Protection Authority being able to treat patients in Auckland? It is our view that genetic modification should be regulated on a national level through the Environmental Protection Authority and under the Hazardous Substances Law.